Now, keeping the focus here, Britain's former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak is all set to take the top job of the country. The first Indian origin Premier of the UK has a rocky road ahead, as he inherits an economy that is possibly headed for recession. The outgoing Prime Minister Truss resigned after her budget of tax cuts funded by debt sent shockwaves through markets, bringing the pound to a record low and triggered yields on government bonds to soar. The UK government had to take a U-turn on most of its budget, including scaling back a cap on soaring energy bills that have contributed heavily to a cost-of-living crisis for tens of millions of Britons. Now, Sunak, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, had warned against Truss's tax cuts in the previous battle for Premier seat. He was proven right, as the budget sent the pound crashing close to parity with the dollar. The former finance minister had also promised to scrap VAT on household fuel bills for a year to tackle the rising cost of living. The Tory leader, who prioritised controlling inflation in his economic policies, is getting mixed responses from the UK citizens.
Someone who's been educated in Harvard knows exactly what he's doing. You know, it's the absolutely only choice. Instead of just going for, like a lot of the politicians in the road, just want to be a politician in their own interest. I think he has a genuine interest in the welfare of this country.
He's a low-tax, trickle-down economist. Won't work. He's got to go. Got to move aside.
Now, for more on this, Jonathan Liz is joining us from London. He's the Deputy Director of the think tank British Influence and senior journalist. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Now, all eyes are essentially on one thing, and that is Rishi Sunak's plan to get the economy running. What are your expectations?
I expect that he will keep the current Chancellor, who Liz Truss put in office. I think it was only a week ago, but it feels like several years now because politics is moving so fast. But that will involve massive spending cuts, austerity that nobody voted for in Britain and people don't want, and is not actually an economic necessity.
Right. Now, Sunak is guaranteed rise in tax credits and pensions, but with a borrowing gap as huge as $44 billion US, how do you think he plans to fulfill these promises?
Well, by cutting spending. But the point is that this is not a necessity. Austerity is a choice. It's a political choice, because Britain has its own central bank. It can release money into the system. It can buy its own bonds, and sort of austerity is a choice to cut spending, to squeeze living standards on the poorest people in society. That's what happened in 2010 under David Cameron, and that is the Tories' chosen medicine when there is a so-called black hole in public finances. But really, it doesn't need to be conceived of in that way, because a household is not the same as a country. There is no credit card that the British government has. As I said, it can produce money. It can have a Keynesian economics where you spend money to actually stimulate the economy.
Now, Jonathan, with every policy failure, more cracks are emerging in the Conservative Party. How do you think Sunak will quell the in-party opposition?
That is a very good question. I'm not sure how, to be honest. Obviously, he said unite or die, as you were talking about a moment ago, and I expect that that will be his message. But the point is that there are a number of Conservatives who are die-hard supporters of Boris Johnson, and they will not accept Sunak. And that is why Sunak has to be very careful, because if he rocks the boat too much, if he pushes people in directions they don't want to go, it's possible that he could lose support in his party, and that could precipitate a general election, which he obviously doesn't want to have because he would lose it. But that is what the opposition parties are going to be calling for very strongly in the coming weeks and months.
All right, then. Thank you for all your insights. That was Jonathan Liz joining us from London.